Well, hello, and thank you for tuning in to Piper's Pick. This will be episode 0. This will be some organized chaos. I just want to put a disclaimer out there to start with that if you have not seen the movie Midnight Sky, spoiler central from here on out. And if you have not read the book,
The Overdue Life of Amy Byler,
then you might want to go read that and go watch the movie and then come back and listen in, because we're going to go over all these. We're going to do a podcast, Piper's Pick. I pick a movie, she picks a book, and basically I try to judge her book by its cover and continue to roll on from there, and she'll correct me and explain the book as we go. At the very end, she'll give a review of the book, and the same goes for me. I'm going to show her the poster of the movie, maybe have her read the blurb, and I'm going to describe the movie as we go, and maybe she'll jump to conclusions, maybe not, and then I'll give my review at the end. That's kind of what we're going to do. We are going to be live streaming this on camera, but the first episode, just to get my beautiful wife, Sierra, comfortable, we're going to do it recording style for now, and I'm going to have some slideshows going, probably pictures of the movie and pictures of the book and stuff like that. But let's get right into it. We're going to start with Sierra.
All right, so I read the book The Overdue Life of Amy Byler by Kelly Harms. The paperback has 332 pages, but I read the digital version of this book on the Kindle. And it opens up, you've got a single mom who's got 2 kids, and she's working really hard to, make sure they can go to school because she has to pay their tuition, and their dad just kind of like boned out on them. So he was like, I gotta go on a business trip to Hong Kong, and then he just dipped.
That's horrible. Yeah. I'm looking at the cover here, and I'm just going to jump to some conclusions right away by looking at the cover here. I see it's written by Kelly Harms, but there's a pretty colorful cover here. It says, The Overdue Life of Amy Byler. Well, from the looks of it, and this is just judging by its cover, I said earlier, we're going to go over here. It's very colorful, and there's a kind of a city backdrop, and there's books on top. So I'm going to take some horrible guesses here.
All right.
Does she live in a metropolis or a big city?
No, actually, she lives in rural Pennsylvania, but she went to college in New York, and she had a college friend, and she kind of comes into play here later in the story.
Okay, so the skyline here might be the New York part, or of her life anyway. Okay.
And the colorful part isn't far off, because I'm telling you, when I read this book, I will read when I'm at work on my breaks. And I'm sitting there just reading and laughing, and people are, looking at me. But,
like you're weird?
Yeah, but I've always been an expressive reader like that. So, if a book has me, and if it has me totally hooked, then, I am very, if it's an emotional book, I'll cry. If it's a happy book or funny book, I'll laugh. So, but I've always been an expressive reader like that.
I will tell you, she is not fibbing.
Well, and I've been a bookworm ever since I was a youngin', and I partially have Harry Potter to thank for that. I liked other books, but I didn't really get into reading until the Harry Potter series. And then it was, I got in trouble because I was reading after bedtime. I was reading a novel in math class.
You got a flashlight on under the blankets?
Yeah, exactly. Don't make me come take your flashlight. Okay.
All right, so let me make one more assumption, and this is probably totally wrong as well. There's books on the front. Is she a librarian?
Yes.
She is a librarian.
She is a librarian.
Boom! See, 2 out of 2 then.
So when her and her husband were married, she didn't really work. She did, but then they started having kids, so she was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And then he left all of the stuff in her lap, house payments, car payments, kids had tuition. So she uses her degree that she had before she got pregnant, and she starts working. It's kind of like a...
what's the setting? What part of her life does it pick up at? Or does it tell her whole story?
Oh, okay. Well, let's just cut to the beginning here, and we'll go through.
Yep.
She's at the supermarket, just minding her own business, running through the list of things in her head. My kids have to do this. I got to take them for that. And she's walking down the aisle, and at the end of the aisle is her estranged husband.
Yay.
Yeah. So she's like, first of all, she's like, I'm not seeing this. This isn't happening. Like, no. And then he notices her, and she contemplates trying to hide. And then, so here's one of those moments where I was laughing out loud because she was contemplating hiding between the greeting cards and the tampons. Like, you know what I mean? So she's talking about maybe if I just dip behind.
The situation's so awkward, that would seem not awkward in comparison.
Yeah, and she was like, I'm just going to nope the heck on out of there.
That's funny.
And also, real quick, I would like to throw out there that we have mouths and we like to swear sometimes, so...
So not only spoiler, sailor mouth alert.
Yes, absolutely. A little bit of trucker sprinkled in there.
Breaker 19.
And so, the overall feeling in this moment is, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, things were just finally kind of breaking even after him leaving, because he's been gone for, like, what was it, 3 or 4 years? He's been gone a while, okay? So in this time, she's raising a teenage girl and named Corey, and a son named Joe, who he's like, I think he's 10.
So she's got 2 kids?
She's got 2 kids.
Okay.
And they don't go to, like, a prep school, but they go to, it's kind of like a private school, so she pays tuition and all this and all that.
Okay, real quick, before we get going, or before we get too far into it, what kind of book is it? Is it a, I mean, I realize it's not. I'm doing a sci-fi movie. Yeah. The Midnight Sky.
I would definitely say this book gives off some rom-com vibes. I mean, there's a little bit of drama in there, but it's not really like swoon drama, you know. It's just kind of like the funny drama, like the things that happen in life that are dramatic.
Yeah, like, hey, there's my ex-husband at the end of the aisle and he notices me. And I'd rather die.
Here's the thing about that, she never filed. So I guess technically they were
estranged?
Just separated. And it wasn't even legally separated. She just never got around to filing the divorce papers, and that comes into
shame on her.
It all kind of ties into the story here.
All right.
So he walks up to her and he's like, I'm sorry, and then he's like, you don't look so good. And she's like, well, I can't imagine why.
Yeah,
you know.
Another punch in the throat.
And so eventually they have a conversation. He's like, I would like to see the kids. You know, I would like to apologize. This
guy? Let me guess. He's was he a deadbeat dad or anything?
No, he was just, work in the office, bring home the bacon, kind of like, I think it said he was in, like, ads and stuff, so, like,
I'm getting
advertising.
Mad Men vibes here a little bit.
Well, no.
Wrong.
I guess I've never seen that show, so I can't.
No, they sit around, drink beer, or drink booze, smoke cigarettes, and come up with that.
Inexpensive suits.
Yes.
Yeah. But they don't really touch on his work too much, just that, because he's kind of like a central part of the book, but not as a character, as the thing that launches her forward.
Oh, gotcha.
Because not only is it a rom-com kind of book.
So does she start kind of like a moth in a cocoon or whatever?
Because there will be change.
Oh, okay. Good.
So...
Sounds good already.
So, anyway, he comes on over to their house, and it's all weird and awkward, and he's like, hey, I would like to take the kids for a week. You know, I understand that you've been working really hard with everything that I left behind for you. I still feel really bad about that, blah, blah.
So let me give you a break, and I'm doing quotation fingers.
Yeah, let me, Yeah, let me give you a break because you've been working so hard because I stuck you there.
Let me help you get out of the mess I put you in.
Yeah. So at first she was like, no, absolutely not. But she seems like a very level-headed character. So, she sits down and talks with their kids and she's like, this is what this means, They kind of go about, don't expect too much. Like,
is she a sympathetic or likable character?
Very likable, very relatable. Like, I saw a lot of, like, just her sense of humor. I think there were a couple of times, I've said something like that before.
Did she have any experiences that you've been like, I've lived through that? Or it's so close that it made you chuckle personally because of...
I guess maybe not any...
That might have been a question for the end, but...
I guess maybe not any experiences, but just, like, her sense of humor. Like, if she were a real person
You'd be
where
friends?
we're at, like, I could sit down and talk with her and joke around with her, because I
Awesome.
feel like her sense of humor would be the same.
That's fantastic.
Which made it super easy. Like, I didn't want to put this book down. I was like...
Oh, I saw you. I know.
Yeah.
Because we had discussed this ahead of time. You know, I picked a movie, she picked a book, and she can read... if she was into Stephen King, she could read The Stand in 2 days.
Unfortunately,
reads-
I'm not, though.
Yes,
I can't
I'm just giving you an example. The Stand is a very thick book. That's my point. She can go through a book in no time. For me to read a book and for me to digest it the way she does, it would have to be a topic I'm head over heels bonkers in love with.
Yeah. Well, and see, how I pick my books is kind of weird. Like, back when I lived in a bigger city and Barnes & Noble was 10 minutes away, I spent so much time in that store. So I'd walk up and down the book racks and I'd see a cover, and if it caught my attention, I'd read the back. If the back caught my attention, I'd read the first couple pages. And if it got me hooked, it was like that. But
Well, usually I am horrible at judging a book by its cover. I'll see a cover and go, "Oh man," and then read the back or read a few pages and go, "No, I don't want that."
Yeah.
That's why I was just shocked that I got the Metropolis and I got the librarian part. I was just shocked I did that. But okay, so she's got a not dirtbag, but estranged ex-husband who wants to take the kids for a week and go.
okay, so at first she's like, no, I'm not gonna, but then they sit down and talk as a family, and she calls her friend Lena. So she's got this friend named Lena who was a former nun, but some of the things that she it makes you wonder how she got into her nunhood.
How she became a nun from the nunnery.
a cheeky, quippy lady who
Okay.
happens to have a slight online shopping addiction. So she'll sit in these, shopping rooms or whatever and bid people out.
Do you think the author wrote the character wrong?
Her friend? Or...
Yeah, well, just because I'm just asking because of the fact that you point out that it's hard for you to believe that she was a nun at one point. So I'm just wondering if you think that they wrote the character wrong, or do you just think it was good character writing?
I think it was good character writing.
Awesome.
And, Lena is kind of like Amy's source of support. So after her husband John left, all she had were the kids and Lena. And so Lena became Aunt Lena to the kids, and she really, really helped Amy out.
Shoulder to cry on, help prop her up.
So she keeps in contact with Lena all the time. And it just so happens that in the book, she's a librarian, and in that field, you have to have a certain amount of mandatory learning hours. So just because you're a teacher, you still have to go to conventions and get hours towards your education to further, So she sees that there's this conference in New York. And she's like, well, I do need to get my mandatory learning hours in. This would be a good opportunity. I don't know.
So she's trying to better herself.
Yeah, well, and it's mandatory for work. And
Yeah.
she's got this whole week, and she loves New York. She went to college with a friend named Talia, who still lives in New York, And so she's like, I'm going to go, I'm not going to go, yes, no. Well, then after pushing from John and Lena, she decided she was going to call Talia and be like, hey, I'm going to be in New York for a couple of days. I have this conference I got to go to. And she's like, yeah, you can stay with me at my apartment. No problem. So after some hemming and hawing around, she decides to go, and she leaves. Well, she's a librarian.
Yeah.
So she leaves her kids a mandatory reading list.
Okay, one question. Was there any Dewey Decimal jokes?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Are you for
I
real?
didn't write them down, but there were a couple where the Dewey Decimal System was mentioned in a joking manner.
Well, she's a librarian, so that's perfect,
Yeah.
man. That's right on brand.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
and I mean, the character of Amy was written great, just fabulously. So she gets on a train And she goes to New York and she tries to get a hold of her friend, and she's calling her and texting her and calling her and texting her. No reply. Well, her friend is, busy. She's up and coming and she works for a magazine, and, kind of like if you think fashionista in the big city,
Yep.
which kind of comes into play with the whole story. So she gets there. She can't get a hold of her friend, and she's like, well, crap. Well, her husband, doing the guilt thing, he gave her his credit card before she left.
Oh, like if you need anything, just put it on this?
Yeah, and she was like, no. She was like, I don't need your handouts. And he's like, take it for just emergencies then. Well, eventually,
I take it she's going to have an emergency.
She ended up checking into a hotel because, her friend would just ghost, couldn't get a hold of her.
Yep.
So she stashes her stuff at a hotel that at first she wasn't going to stay at, but then she ended up staying there. And she goes to the conference, and she's standing there snacking on a tray, and someone walks up to her and talking about, oh, these things are such a bore. I just came here to get away from my husband and my kids. And, that kind of typical. That it is kind of typical, but...
Yeah.
And then they start talking about this hot librarian who was like librarian of the year last year, and just a little banter to set up the scene. And then she meets hot librarian, whose name ends up being Daniel.
Oh, he's a man.
Yes.
Oh, see,
yes.
You were saying hot librarian. I was thinking of a female just because I'm a male, I think.
Yeah.
Probably all the males listening were like, ooh, hot librarian.
Yeah,
he's got a schlong, folks.
Hot dude librarian. Man.
Hell yeah, there you go.
And so...
Now, this guy, let me guess. Is he... Okay, one of two things, all right? See, I kind of profess to be like a amateur writer, so like I like dissecting some things. So like, let me guess. One of two archetypes. He's either the super sweet dude who's going to be left in the dust, or he's a super douche. Which one? Either? None? Am I wrong?
You are wrong, technically.
Awesome. Okay, don't explain it unless it's time. I just wanted to throw another guess out there. Like usually, if you hear about the hot dude and he shows up and is a complete dick.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. But he really dad jokes, library jokes, kind of fits in with her sense of personality and everything.
Gotcha.
So. She leaves and goes back to her room or whatever, and then she has to come back and she does a lecture. It's like extra points for the mandatory hours if you present something.
Okay.
Well, and
so does she have to get up in front of a bunch of people?
Yes. So
does she have a phobia of that?
No.
Okay. All right. Good enough. I was just trying to lead again and be wrong. I usually am.
Kind of introduces like a revolutionary reading program.
Okay.
Because she noticed that, like some of the students struggle with books picked.
Like kids being left behind in reading.
Yeah, which I completely understand because everyone reads
a real
at
problem.
Yeah. And her daughter was one of them. She just could not get her daughter interested in books, no matter how hard she tried. So she figured out a way to find a book that kind of like fell within the criteria so they could have options of choosing. And keep it completely anonymous so students couldn't tease other students for reading at a level below their own.
Well, I can completely understand that, trying to entice somebody to read. It took somebody to show me that, hey, your favorite movie, Star Wars? You know that those stories continue on in books? And I was like, really? So
Tell me more.
Yeah, I had to sign up for that and start reading because I'm a giant nerd. Go ahead.
So anyway, she kind of hems and haws around, and she does her presentation, and there's some questions, and then afterwards, hot librarian walks up to her and kind of starts flirting with her, and then I think they go and get like coffee or something like that.
How did the presentation go?
Oh, it went really good. It didn't really dwell too much within, it was horrible. Like, she, introduced her idea, answered a couple questions. Every question they asked her, she had an answer for, so
Awesome.
she knew the workaround.
So she didn't struggle through it at all.
There was one thing that she didn't know, but she knew well enough how to say, but I'm still working on it.
Yeah, yep.
So it wasn't like a failure. And I imagine, like being a teacher, you're in front of students, so public speaking doesn't really bother you that much, So fast forward to the next day after, and Talia finally gets a hold of her. And so she goes over, and Talia goes, yeah, there was a murder in our building last night, so I couldn't get in, and my phone was inside the building. So that's why her friend couldn't get a hold of her, but that allowed her to meet and kind of mingle with Hot Librarian.
Yeah. Okay, so this is another leading thing. Don't just tell me if I'm right or wrong. Don't elaborate, and then continue your story. She gets wrapped up with the librarian. Does the husband with the kids back feel betrayed?
No.
Okay.
I don't really know how I'm going to work this info into this, so I'll just tell you now.
Okay.
While he was in Hong Kong, he had his own side piece. And because...
Not the librarian,
no, her estranged husband,
okay.
John. His name is John.
So he's already shacking up with another lady.
Yeah, he already... And, I mean, she would, go get waxes, and, he'd comp the bill. So basically what I'm thinking is... He was going through, a midlife crisis, and he felt like there was so much pressure on him, so he just caved and left, and then he had himself a sugar baby, pretty basically. And so Amy is staying in a hotel that her estranged husband is paying for, and the next morning she wakes up and she gets a phone call saying, there's activity on this card in Hong Kong. Well, his mistress was using his bank account at the same time she was using his bank account.
And was it flagging because there was two hotel rooms?
Yeah, New York and Hong Kong.
And so he got, even though they're estranged, he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, kind of.
Yeah, well,
I mean, even though they're not together, I understand, but
shortly after he had left. She discovered that he had a side piece.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't news to her.
No, she knew, and it was a very sore area. She were, as the kids these days say, extra salty about it.
So did she hit it off with this hot librarian who has a dong?
Well, yes, and I talk a little bit more about that coming up here.
Okay.
Anyway, after the seminar, she's kind of struggling with the the conference is over. Do I stay in New York or do I rush home to my kids? Because all I know is being a busybody for them.
Yep.
And she's staying with Talia at this point, and Talia, being the fashionista, was like, you need a makeover. You shouldn't be out in the city like this. And she ends up getting thrown into this project because she meets an individual named Matt who works for the magazine. He's kind of like Talia's right-hand man. And he's working on the story called Mom Springer.
Like Rumspringa?
Like Rumspringa, but Mom Springer. Okay, and so now for the listeners who don't know what a Rumspringer is, I'm going to read this to you directly from Wikipedia, so there's no
misunderstanding.
Yeah, I don't want to upset or offend anybody, so we'll let Wikipedia do that for people.
Let Wikipedia fend for us.
Yeah, Rumspringa is a rite of passage during adolescence, translated in English as jumping or hopping around, used in some Amish communities. The Amish, a subsect of the Anabaptist Christian movement, intentionally segregate themselves from other communities as a part of their faith. For Amish youth, the Rumspringa normally begins around the ages of 14 to 16 and ends when a youth decides whether to be baptized into the Amish church or to leave the community and go live out in the world. For Wanger Mennonites, Rumspringa occurs between the ages of 17 and 21. So they let them leave their community and go out and experience the real world and see if they want to stay within the Amish community or if they want to integrate into the world outside. But doing that means they would have to leave the
there's a banishment kind of.
Yeah.
If you choose to exclude yourself, then you're literally excluded.
And there is a little interesting blurb that I want to add. It says, not all Amish use this term, but in sects that do, Amish elders generally view it as a time for courtship and finding a spouse. A popular view exists by which the period is institutionalized as a rite of passage, and the usual behavior restrictions are relaxed so that Amish youth can acquire some experience and knowledge of the non-Amish world.
Okay, so Momspringa. What kind of event? Is this a fashion event?
Well, see, now Matt takes this, and, you know, it's kind of like your stereotypical woman in the big city, like tired mom. Like, she gets a makeover, she gets her eyebrows done, she gets her hair cut. She starts going to these spinning classes. Like, Matt really tries to set her up with, you know, like the perfect story. You know, here comes a mom that's super tired, overworked, and she has some time for her.
We're going to make her feel like a brand new woman.
Yeah, we're going to, you know, help her on her journey, if you will. Because the book really is kind of a journey.
Yeah, well, it's an intimate story of hers.
Yeah.
So.
And so one night she ends up calling Hot Librarian. And they end up going out for drinks, and they end up hooking up.
Oh, they hook up?
They hook up.
Is it funny?
Well, they don't really talk about
hot?
it. They don't give details, actually.
It's not
They
smut.
just talk. No, it's not. This one isn't smutty.
Okay. She reads smut. Don't let her fool you.
Yeah, I can read some pretty naughty ones sometimes, but this isn't like that. It was like, hey, we were out for drinks. I said this funny thing. And then the chapter opening up is her waking up in a bed with, you know, like, oh my God, what did I do? And then she kind of explained her thing with her husband, how they're like separated, but
to the hot librarian.
Yeah, but we're separated, but I haven't had the nerve to divorce because she kind of felt like maybe there was a way if he came back, everything could go back to normal.
Right. She still had hopes for that, possibly.
Yes.
It wasn't closed off, at least in her heart.
She begins her Momspringa, and it just kind of like, you know, at first she was very hesitant. She's like, I need to get back to my kids. I need to get back to my kids. But all of her friends, Talia, Lena.
Was it, when she finally did it and let go, was it freeing for her? And
almost, yeah. She said she had talked about it as kind of weird, like just letting go, like I'm a mom, you know, but eventually that kind of like phases out. And then Matt brings up, well, hey, you need to start like dating. Mm-hmm. And because, see, throughout all of this Momspringa, of course, they've got photographers following her around because it's for a magazine article.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, photographers will show up. They did her before and after pics of her makeover and pictures of her at spinning classes and working out. And
so she's getting the whole Cinderella treatment, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. She gets...
And a hot man.
Yeah. And, well, the magazine that her friend Talia works for, like, comps everything. Her wardrobe.
Oh, wow.
Like, everything
no more ex-husband's credit card, huh?
No, but there was a couple of times she used it just to spite him, because she was like, you know. And so...
Gotta get her licks in, I guess.
Well, she explained everything to Daniel, hot librarian.
Okay.
About her husband, you know, about how, you know...
The situation she's
in. Like, technically I'm married, but...
What did librarian think of the kids? Did she tell him that she had kids?
Yeah, she talked about kids, and he had talked about her, because he also has a daughter. Who is around Corey's age, who's a very...
I imagine this came out during the drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the first interaction.
Yeah, when they really start talking. Well, and over the course of this book, they start spending a lot of time together. But after they hooked up, he was all like, well, you know, you're still married and you've got attachments. He said, let's just be friends. So they would go out on these friend dates,
Oh,
okay?
that's dirty. He's
And
like,
so-
hey, I got the milk for free and somebody else owns the cow. I can't steal the cow.
No, well, and I mean, they both...
Not that a woman's a cow. I hope you understand what I meant.
They both agreed on the friend zone terms.
Oh, they both did?
They both were like, hey, you know, let's...
Step back.
You know, you've got further entanglements here, and
Okay.
I've got this going on here.
Nobody felt jilted or jaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then Matt was like, hey, you need to start dating. So, you know, by this point, he's got his project up on social media, and people start like, oh, I want to go on a date with this person. So you go
Well,
on
now
this...
she's semi-famous, right? Or whatever.
Well,
no.
not like famous, but she's...
Has the article or the thing come out yet?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
No, it's
My
still
bad.
a work in progress. So, it's over the span of like a week, and then her week is up, and then I think she ended up going home and coming back. She was really enjoying her time in New York, you know.
Yeah.
And so, or maybe she didn't go back.
And
but...
to be very hesitant to go anyway, I imagine, you know, she had a good time.
So she starts going, and so you get to follow her on these string of dates, and you got the one guy, the chiseled buff guy who's kind of douchey, and then you have the one guy who isn't over his ex-wife, and all he would do is cry and talk about her on their date, and you know, they ended up walking away from the situation as friends. So you go through a couple of these failed blind dates, and then... You know, it's very clear that Amy has feelings for Daniel.
That it's not put away yet.
Yeah. And so, in this whirlwind trip of everything that's gone on, you know, she's just kind of in the balance with a lot of things. Like, in a way, the closure that her and her estranged husband will soon be ex-husband, like... Everything coming crashing back to her kind of sent her into, like, a panic mode. And she's like, this is crazy. I'm a grown woman. Like, I should go home to my kids because my kids need me. You know, but there is a theme about how she martyred herself. Because her husband left her and, oh, poor me. And she wasn't really the poor me kind, but she liked to... She was unintentionally sabotaged herself by martyring herself.
She was getting comfortable with victimhood.
Yes.
So to speak.
In a sense. It's not like, you know, some people play that up. Like, I'm the victim, this and that, you know.
We all have that friend on Facebook or Twitter.
Yes. Or someone that we work with.
Or family.
Yeah, we all know at least one person somewhere in our life like that. And she's not that bad. But the theme of him martyring her, and, you know, that popped up. And there was a struggle between letting it go and, hey, I've worked really hard. I've earned this, you know. Think of everything that John missed out on, all the emergencies, all the practices, all the chess meets, like...
You really dove deep into this book, man. Me and my movie are going to seem like chump change. But continue.
So... You know, you kind of have her facing this, like, she's on the precipice. Do I stay the martyred ex-wife, or do I go out and, like, learn how to enjoy my life and...
Change and grow and become something better.
Because there was so much that she lost having to snap in and be both parents at once.
Oh, I'm sure.
That she just felt really bad letting her kids go, and... You know, one thing that I found very interesting about this book is I told you earlier that she had assigned a reading list to her kids. So she assigned this reading list to her kids. Yeah, and she's like, so, you know, this week you need to read this book that, you know.
Yep.
And
this
her
is while
daughter,
she's gone. She wants to make sure her kids are reading while she's gone.
She wants to keep them on track for school, especially her daughter Corey, who's not really a fan of reading.
Not a strong reader?
Yeah. Okay. So, not only did she assign her a reading list, but she also said you have to journal for each you have to journal each day about your reading list, So she would have questions related to the books that she had picked on the reading list. And so the beginning of every chapter is Corey writing something in her journal.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and so,
That's a neat, what do you call it? A hook, or, I'm blanking on what I'm trying to say here.
Like a little shtick, how just the style of how it's done.
Yeah.
So, and not only are they hilarious because you get the flashes of rebellious teenager.
It's a very interesting artistic decision, is what I was trying to say.
Yes. Well, and what her daughter journals kind of segues into the chapter. Like, the book is very well put together.
As an example, it was a very interesting artistic decision for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to be written as letters.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Some people couldn't read the book because it was like that in letters and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
And the next book that I would like to read will also be done in the form of journal entries.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting, because it almost feels a little more personal, maybe, trying to, just like how you empathize with a character, or you be like, hey, I can relate to that character.
Yep.
It feels a little more personal because you think, hey, journal entry, that's private.
Yes. Correct. Yep.
But, an
internal monologue rather than the external details that the book usually gives you.
And so Corey is a sassy little teenager who will throw in quips about have to do the stupid reading list, but she's also very brilliant. Both of her kids are smart. Like her son Joe.
Most smart kids get bored, especially with school.
Well, and her son Joe is like skip a grade smart. You know what I mean? He's like 10 years old and talking about what college he wants to go to.
Yeah.
And so
he's a 10th grader, he's 10 years old, but he's like a 10th grader in his brain.
And even though that we're going over this and I'm explaining it pretty thoroughly, there is some stuff that I'm missing. So
tons of vibrant things that you can't
elaborate on everything.
Correct.
And so I definitely encourage listeners at home to definitely pick it up and read it. You get a good chuckle.
Well, what we would like to do also going forward is we'd like to give you guys plenty of time to know what we're doing, so that we'll probably do this once or twice a month. And what we'll do is we will let you know ahead of time so that you can go read the book. If you are a reader and you would like to follow Sierra's journey through her reading list, you can do that. And you can also, because I'm a big giant movie buff, if you don't read and you actually enjoy movies, then I will be telling you the movie I'm going to do well ahead of time so that you can watch that same movie and then you can go along with us. And our chat will be going, and you'll be able to comment and tell us what you thought, because that's what's really important to us. We do want to hear from you in all this. Like I said, this is just this is some organized chaos. We're just trying to streamline stuff, and I'm going to send it back to Sierra so that she can continue with the story.
And also, one thing I like to add is, with people in the comments, like, no one person reads a book the same way.
Oh, it's in your head.
So I picked up and read this book this way, and I saw it in this light, and I felt the humor, and I also felt the sadness. Or, just like everybody reads different. So maybe if you've already read the book, how did you see it?
Correct.
And that's the one thing I really like about talking with people and everything is, like, everybody has their own idea. We're all so different. I mean, we're similar, but we all, you can read something and read it a million different ways.
But we would certainly like to give everybody a heads up on what we're going to be doing, so that if you're following along with us and you watch our episodes, you'll be able to engage right away, not have to come back to it because of spoilers.
Yeah. And so, back to
hot, steamy Daniel.
Well, and so she goes through this, and at first she didn't really want to participate in a mom springer, but her friend Talia was like, come on. Yeah. And you have Lena on the other side of things. Like, they'll go in and jump in a group text, and, a couple pages will be texts between them. And it's like text between you and your friends, or me and mine. Like, they'll say something and laugh, or,
Yep.
And so they just encourage her to go out there and...
So where's this journey going? She's like she's kind of getting a really good look at New York. She's got a makeover. She's feeling different. She's on the precipice of being somebody new, possibly.
Yeah, well, she's kind of just evolving into, okay, I am an overworked human being who's been neglected. I'm not complaining because I take care of my kids. I love my kids, but I'm neglected, Like, there were a couple quips in there about her mom jeans and a fanny pack. And, so it's kind of like her journey of, like, letting...
She's more self-discovery for herself.
Yeah.
Parts that she thought may have been gone forever, probably.
Yeah. It's sort of like, like, I've been jilted... And I poured all my energy into everything around me except for myself. Well, now the time comes to take time and energy for myself, but I can't, like, just let go. Because she's still, for at least half the book, she's stuck with, I hope my kids are doing okay. Like, what are they doing without me? Stuff like that. Like a mom would experience being away from her kids. Mm-hmm. And she just kind of, like, slowly learns to let go. Like, her ex-husband, John, signed the kids up for camp. They, Corey's a diver, so she's
things were well taken care of while she was gone. She shouldn't have worried too much.
She shouldn't have. And there for a while, she let go. But then something happened, and it, like, clicked in her head. And she started regressing. She's like, my kids need me. This is silly.
She went right back to her old self?
Packed up and went right back to rural Pennsylvania. And everyone's like,
That's not how it ends, is it?
No.
Okay.
What are you doing here so early? And Talia was like, I came home and, like, you were just gone. And she got home, like, a day before the kids left for camp. So they were able to spend one night together and see him off to camp. And then I think she decided to go back to New York, or something happened. She ended up getting a call from Corey's coach while she was at diving camp. And Corey had gotten hurt. She had dived and missed and hit her head. And then later that night...
And this is her friend or her kid?
Her daughter, Corey.
Oh, okay.
Her teenager.
The brilliant one.
Yeah, no, the brilliant one. I mean, they're both brilliant. I mean, her son Joe is the skip-a-grade brilliant.
But she was the one that did the journals.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so she ended up hitting her head and begged people not to tell. And she went back to her room later that night, or later that afternoon, for a nap.
Oh.
And she laid down, and her camp counselor went to go wake her up, and she wouldn't, like...
She was dead?
No, she wasn't dead, but there was a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, it swelled. Her brain swelled or whatever.
Oh, okay. So
that's horrible.
So that's what it was. She went through her freak out, like, I shouldn't be doing this, and her, she called Daniel over. And she was like, look, we can't... Because by this point, they'd kind of like, let's just see where things go. They're hooking up. He's staying over with her at Talia's apartment. And, just playing house. And the whole, summer's coming to an end. You know what I'm going for there, right? Yeah. So she, in the midst of her freak out, before she left, she called Daniel. And he came over to Talia's apartment and picked up all his stuff that he had there. And she's like, I'm sorry. This has been really great, but this is a mistake. I need to get home back to my kids. Like,
she's
this
like,
and
take
that.
your toothbrush and your hair gel and that brush you
and
left
your
in the sink.
shaver and go. And he was like, is there anything I can say? And she was just like, no, I need to do this. I need to go home with my kids. It's been real, but peace,
Yeah.
And so she goes home, and then they send the kids off to camp, and she kind of hems and haws with her ex, and just like, I want a divorce, and this and that, and, she goes...
She steps it up. She's ready to take the steps she was unwilling or not ready to take before.
Yeah. So that's where her journey comes into hanging on to the hope that they could save their family as it was.
So she has legitimate character arc and character development
Yes.
throughout the story. That's
Yes.
excellent. Sometimes some of the funnier books leave that on the sideline.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, it's the rom-com vibes, but it's not fluffy for the sake of being fluffy.
That's fantastic.
Like, there's purpose behind what she's going through. Like, yeah, the makeup sounds, and, you know, the makeover and this and that sounds all Sex in the City, but it was really just kind of showing her how to, like, hey, you know, you're not tethered and bound to something that's not going to happen anymore. You can go out and, you know, do the Mom Springer. And so she finally, you know, kind of brings her self-discoveries to her ex-husband and was like, hey, let's just do this. And then shortly thereafter, they get the phone call that their daughter is injured. So she's freaking out. They go all...
Does she go into a coma, or...
she kind of just...
Because you can just die from that. You can just go to sleep, your brain swells too much, and you just
They
die.
didn't really get into the super science-y part of it. I think the purpose of that event was to... what's going to happen?
Put fear in her?
Well, and not...
Or prepare her for something coming?
No, it's just... You know how you have certain things that set up other things for the plot?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Yep.
And so, you
or
know...
a thingamajig.
Yeah.
a lot of writers use
doohickey.
Yeah. Use a doohickey to further the plot there.
So her and John show up at the hospital, and...
Daniel shows up.
Yes.
Good,
hold on. Lena shows up first.
Okay.
You know, because Lena's been kind of like the grounding for Amy. Of course, Lena's going to be like the first person that she called.
Right.
So she called Lena. Lena shows up. And then shortly after Lena shows up, Talia shows up. And Talia's like, Lena called me this and that. And she said, I came home and all your shit was gone. Like, what the hell, you know? Mm-hmm. And not too long after that, Daniel walks in. And so then she like introduced him to the kids and tried to make it not weird.
What about the ex-husband?
He was kind of like a little meh at first, but he knew that it was, by this point, it was kind of mutually agreed that they were just done, and, you know.
No salvaging it.
It is what it is. Let's just work on co-parenting, kind of. Which, you know, kudos to those that can make it work, because, I mean, I'm sure that can't be easy. You know, I've heard horror stories about co-parenting, and I've heard dream stories,
right.
so...
not to cut you off, how much longer do you think you have to go?
Just a couple more seconds here,
actually. Okay, go ahead and then do your review, and we're going to get into my movie. Because, believe it or not, we were confused on the time on how long the podcast was going to take, and Sierra was a little concerned with how much material she had. Well, we're at 47 minutes right now, and... that went very well, so this is going to be awesome. I hope you guys are having fun. We're going to get to the movie in just a second, but we're going to let Sierra finish up with the story and then get into her review.
Okay, so Daniel shows up, and then she kind of introduces him to everybody, and then it kind of like the very ending chapter kind of fast forwards. So like Joe comes home from camp, and you know... She has to ask the kids if it's okay that they date.
You said ask the kids.
Yes.
So the daughter gets better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she does.
So it was just like an abnormality that wouldn't allow her to wake up, and then she ended up getting better.
It was like a super concussion.
Okay. I mean, good.
Yeah, like super concussion.
Enough to scare the crap out of the parents.
Yes.
And, okay.
So she, flash forward, she's coming home from the hospital. She's got to rehab a little bit. You know, and she sits down and conversates with her kids about, you know, this is Daniel, like, we really like each other, you know, nobody's gonna move anywhere right this second, you know, she doesn't want to just uproot her kids, you know.
Yeah,
so,
that's a big decision.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts.
Well, and, you know, from rural Pennsylvania to New York City.
Yeah, like, wow, that would be a culture shock for the kids.
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, Daniel has a daughter.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did mention that.
She goes to this super science-y school. It's like this real prestigious school that that Joe has talked about going to because he's, you know, a brilliant young kid. He's talking about going to this school. And so, you know, she sat down and is like, we're not going to expect anything out of it as of right now. You know, we're not going to move. She had talked about waiting until Corey graduated and then would wait to take Joe so they could move to New York then, because that's a school he wanted to go to. And that's how the book ends, is, you know, she got through this whole experience. She went through highs and lows and, you know, like...
Well, I love a good story that has character development, character depth, and definitely character arcs and growth. It's just amazing, especially if you can see yourself in the character.
Yeah. And so... And, you know, that was the end of that. You know, it kind of faded out like happily ever after.
So before... Okay, so it leaves off with her and Daniel. Are they all one big happy family? Like him and the daughter move in? Or does it leave it with her life in a really good place and her and Daniel in a good place, but not like in the same household?
So it leaves them both in a really good place. Like, it doesn't... I mean, it brings up that, you know, she's thinking about moving to New York.
Yeah, it doesn't cinch it all up in a knot.
Yeah, no, but it leaves them both in really good places. Him in New York City and her in Pennsylvania, and they'll travel to and fro, you know. And it just ends with the promise of something better to come, you know, or That's awesome.
One question before you get into the review. Is this the first time you've ever read this author?
Yes. Yes, this was actually just some random...
Is this author's first book, or...?
I think there are more from this author. I didn't really see, because I'm a Prime reading shark, so I'll go through the Prime reading list, and I'll see...
Well, sometimes you can read a book, and it's part of a series, and you have no clue.
I think this book is a standalone book, but I also think that she has written 4 or 5 more.
With the same character? Or...
No, just other books in general.
Okay.
So
will you be willing to read her other works?
I'm thinking so, yeah.
You had a good time?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and do your review then.
So...
and before you get started, explain your review format. My review format for the movies that I talk about are going to be 1 to 10 stars. Because, you know, that's just how I'm going to do it. How are you going to do yours?
Okay, so I am going to go on a rating of 1 to 5 bookmarks.
That's so cute.
Well, you know, stars just doesn't seem to fit, and I'm thinking, well, books. So I would give this book a 4.5 out of 5 bookmarks. Just
that's
because
awesome.
It had all the criteria that I kind of look for in a book. Like, you know, it engaged me. Like, I was laughing, and I would talk to my book, and I would, you know, truly rooting these characters on. I heard you talking in
the other room, and I'm like, what, honey? And you're like, oh, it's my book.
I don't want to...
You laughed out loud a few times.
Yeah,
I know.
Sitting at work reading, and I was explaining to my manager what a mom Springer was. Like,
that was just kind of like,
okay. And I'm like, yeah, hilarious. You know, so I give this 4.5 bookmarks out of 5.
Okay,
just it had all the criteria. It made me laugh, it made me feel, and it was written really well. I mean, there are some books you can read that aren't written that well per se, but for me it's all about eliciting a response. Like, did you respond to your book? Did you feel? Like, there have been books that I could sit there and read and just bawl and cry hysterically just because I feel so deeply for what the characters are going through. I mean, a book can be written kind of you know, but if you can look past the iffiness and it, like, still elicits response, I mean, that doesn't mean it's a bad book. It's just, I got all response from this. I laughed. I teared up with joy. I mean, you know, my heart sank when Corey got hurt. Like, it's just very rounded. So 4.5 bookmarks out of 5. That's a great number for the book.
why don't you give the title of the book and the author one more time and where they can find it, and then I'll jump into my movie.
Okay. And this was about the overdue life of Amy Byler by Kelly Harms. And it is out on paperback, but like I said, I read it in the digital format. So, you know, if you decide to read this book, happy reading. I hope it's as rewarding for you as it was for me. And I definitely hope I come across another book kind of like this. I'm a sucker for rom-coms and stuff like that. Like, if you can make me laugh, we're good.
All right. So, that is awesome. That went so well. This is going to be so fun doing this.
I'm kind of warming up to it and getting a little more comfortable with it. Y'all, I was so nervous. I'm not...
I wanted to jump right in and go live and everything, and she was a little apprehensive, but we're going to make this work. This has been a lot of fun. And now let's jump into the movie and show you how not prepared I am compared to my wife. But anyway, I watched this movie and I really did enjoy the movie. Let me state that right off the bat. The Midnight Sky was a very I really enjoyed the movie. I did not like the ending. I will explain why. But it's one of those movies where they don't give you all the information. You do not have all the information. There's a whole bunch of question marks in your head the entire time you watch this.
So does that mean, like, it kind of leaves things open for interpretation then?
Yes, it actually does. And I'll get into that. So the movie starts, it's called Midnight Sky, and the only hint I will give you, or the only insight, it's a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah, well,
but it doesn't really feel that way, though.
Well, by looking at the cover, you know,
the poster?
Yeah, I get very spacey themes, you know. I can guarantee that something will happen, you know.
Yeah, it is a very fantastical adventure.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yes.
Does it do with any kind of time travel?
No, it does not.
Okay.
No time travel.
Time travel plot lines can confuse me a little bit.
Oh, they
so
confuse.
I just wanted to...
They confuse everyone. That's why.
That's why they do it?
Yeah, and some of those... Yeah, and sometimes it's for plot conveniences, and yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I always enjoy a good time travel movie because where we're going, we don't need roads. But anyway, okay. So, The Midnight Sky. This was directed by George Clooney. And it has George Clooney is an actor in it as well. So George Clooney acts in it. He's also the director. Felicity Jones is in it. David Oleo. Coylin Springle, who's the kid, Iris. Kyle Chandler. Demaine Bashir. And Tiffany Boone. Sophie Rondell. And Ethan Peck. So, okay, so the movie picks up in a... kind of a weird location. It's real dull. It looks kind of like a cafeteria, yet in one scene it shows like a medical chair, and an old man is kind of wandering around this location. He goes into the med area and he like takes a pill off the counter and he takes it, and he's all alone now. It's just George Clooney, old man with a big grizzly beard, and he's wandering around. And it's a cold clinical type of environment, meaning nothing is there for artistic value. It's
all
function.
purpose.
Yeah, it's all function.
So is this something that was set up, like, because you mentioned it was like a post-apocalyptic movie. Was it a cafe that was turned into like a medical hall kind of thing?
No. Now, I have all the information and you guys don't have much, so I'm going to try to keep certain things vague so that at the end, it's as revealing as the movie was, okay?
Yeah.
And then I'll explain why in the revelation I didn't like the ending.
Yeah.
Okay, but, so he sits down at this cafeteria and he's all alone, and he's looking out of these windows and it looks like clouds. It almost looks like he's way in the sky or something. He's actually not, but it looks like that. It looks like he's high up.
So he's on Earth?
That is undetermined.
Unclear.
It's unclear. They don't tell you it's Earth. All they tell you is it's 2049, and then these cryptic words come after it. It says February 2049, 3 weeks after the event. What is the event? It doesn't tell you.
So it jumps back and forth from before event.
After event.
Okay, so there's time jumping.
Yes.
Like, okay, gotcha.
Yes. So when I cut to a different scene or a different character, I will tell you it's unclear on when or where, and I'll go into it.
Okay.
But okay, so he sits down at a cafeteria and he's eating and he's looking out the windows and stuff. And after some time, the old man reflects on past events. He's sitting there while he's eating and he's thinking of past events. And this is a not too long ago past event. This facility he's at all of a sudden is filled with people. And he's walking around and you find out by chatter around him that the old man is terminal.
Oh.
Everybody's doing some kind of an evacuation and everybody's getting ready to leave. And somebody says, well, what about him?
Well,
and
because
they go,
he's terminal, so they're not going to take him.
Correct.
Oh.
He doesn't have a place. And it might be even more than that. He might be even more important, but it's unclear. But they say, he's terminal, he's not coming. Okay. Well, while he is helping these people or walking with them as they're getting on the transport, getting ready to leave, a mother comes running up. And she goes, hey, my kid, oh, my baby, where is she, blah, blah, blah. We can't leave her behind. And an old lady that is in line says, no, ma'am, no, she got on the transport just a second ago. I saw her with my own eyes. And the lady calms down, and they calm her down, and she's okay with that. She's on the other transport. Okay, we're going. The transport takes off. The old man's alone. It goes back to him sitting and eating. He's just having flashes, you know.
Is the old man really alone, though?
Yes.
Because I guess, you know, the child on the transport, I guess my mind just went to she didn't really get on the transport, so...
That's interesting. You are correct, and you're wrong, and you won't understand that till the end, but yes, you are correct, and you're wrong. Okay. But no, you were jumping to the absolute proper conclusion. But okay, so this lady doesn't, she calms down and it cuts back to him sitting there eating. And that was a backflash of some type. But it's unclear and when and where and all that. Maybe it was 10 years ago. It doesn't explain any of that stuff. The futuristic planes take off and stuff. This... As it's taking away, you can see that where he's stationed or whatever this place is, it looks like some kind of high-tech observatory of some kind. Almost like something that looks at the stars or something like that. It's definitely some kind of observatory. And I better state this too. It is a frozen tundra. It's all white, kind of like what it looks like in North Dakota right now. And I absolutely call North Dakota the frozen tundra as well.
Because it really is. You guys, if you're not from here, you don't understand. Like, yeah, that's...
Okay, so the old man's kind of wandering around the facility. He is completely alone. And you can tell he's not well. He's not keeling over dying, but you can tell something's off with him.
He just kind of looks
a
little
sickly.
rickety.
Yes.
Yeah.
And left behind... He wanders around and he grabs some alcohol. He pours himself a drink. He goes into the med room, like the little hospital area type place, and he sits down and he administers meds for his condition. So he takes a pill with liquor, which probably isn't a good idea, but he takes his pill, he drinks some liquor, and then he connects himself up to some sort of transfusion machine that takes his blood and cycles it and then puts it back in him.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Because this jumps back and forth like that, is this whole movie like the beginning scenes where we see the old man where he's treating himself, is this like his last medical treatment? Like, is this movie his death dream? Like, is he reliving things?
It's not, no, it is not his death dream.
I guess not death dream, but like
he is terminal. He is terminal.
Well, because
he's at the end of the road.
How in some movies, like a character is sitting down and
we'll
dying.
Have visions
they'll relive important things that happened in their past, and that's kind of almost what this format reminds me of.
He is looking back on regrets, okay, and stuff like that from his past, but a lot of it is unclear, like I said.
So there's some reflection, but it's not like I'm dying, here was my life.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not set up like that, and it's not like his his life flashing before his eyes or anything like that. During the transfusion, he falls asleep. He wakes up after after that, and then another backflash takes place. Now, some young man, is it George Clooney, the man with the beard, as a young man? It doesn't tell you. Unclear. So it shows a young man at a cocktail event. And then, so he's at this cocktail event and he's walking around, and then it turns out this young man is a speaker at the event, and he starts talking about how Earth is in trouble, and how they found an exoplanet called K2. It's like a moon around Jupiter, an undiscovered moon.
So this is the introduction to the downfall of the planet and why they are kind of going where they're going.
Sort of, but they just briefly touch on it. They don't say what the Earth's in trouble about. They don't say how long they got. They don't say any of that
just
stuff.
Just enough to plant a seed.
Correct.
Gotcha.
It's very unclear. But they say, hey, the Earth's in trouble, but with the Earth's in trouble today, with overpopulation and the world burning on fire and, all that kind of stuff. So it did plant a little seed, though. So he's at this cocktail event, and he goes up to give his presentation, and he talks about this exoplanet called K2. And this planet is very far from the sun, but it has inner thermal vents and stuff that keep the planet warm, and it's got oxygen, and they think this is a long journey in the making, but this is the very beginning of the idea of sending somebody or probes to check out K2 and to figure out if it's habitable. And then after he talks, he comes down off the podium, and a beautiful woman comes up to him, and they start bantering back and forth, and you can sort of tell that there's a spark and something's about to happen between the two, and it cuts out of that backflash. Now, is it the old man? It's unclear. It doesn't tell you who this young person is. I assumed watching it at that point that is the old man as a young man, but it wasn't explained at that moment. Okay, moving on. Waking up, he fumbles around, he grabs his drink, takes another pill, puts his drink back down, which is horrible. I don't know how you could drink liquor and then wake up the next morning and reach for it. But anyway, he takes the pill, and he wanders into a room, and he brings up this star map, and it shows a space station, and it shows how far away it is from a planet. It doesn't say Earth. It just shows a planet and how far away the space station is, and how long it's gonna take before it's in range. And he sets a reminder for when it is in range. He was going to contact this space station.
Does the space station go horribly off track?
What's that?
Now, you say he's watching the trajectory of the space station, right? He's going to alert them when he gets close to this planet?
The computer will go, alert,
Yeah.
they're in range, you can contact them now. Because if he sends the signal, they won't even get it.
So, my question does he start watching this and it completely flies off its trajectory path?
No.
Okay.
No, this movie is very hard to judge and guess what happens.
Well,
it really
and I was
is.
because that's a very, very popular trope in space movies,
Okay, and what happens next is a little jarring in the movie, as a matter of fact. The very next scene, because it jumps from him, and you don't know if it's very unclear. You don't know if it is a backflash, a flash forward. What is this that's going on? But you are introduced to Felicity Jones, whose character's name is Sully. You don't get her name. I'm unsure if you ever get her name in the movie. I have her written down as pregnant woman. I had to look it up to find out who she was. But Felicity Jones, a woman has a dream of being left alone on a planet as futuristic spaceships leaves the planet. She runs towards these. She's basically running through a field of grain, kind of like the waves of grain that North Dakota has. You know. She's like running through it, and you can tell it's not Earth. There's not a blue sky. It's like a orange sky or something. And she's clearly pregnant. She's yelling, "No, don't leave me!" And she's running through these weeds, and then she comes out into a clearing, and the big giant like space shuttle is taking off and going up into orbit.
Oh.
And then she wakes up. It's a bad dream.
Is that a foreshadowing? dream, or was that just put in there for...
It is a little foreshadowing because there is dread to come, but...
like a bad omen?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. A bad omen. Yes. As she wakes up, you realize she's a traveler on the space station that he was looking at in the computer screen or whatever. Long panning shots floating around showing us the station. The space station is huge, with huge sections that are like bubbles coming off of it that have like thick glass, and they're like aquaponic like stations. Like there's jungles in there. It's a huge thing. It's meant to keep like 6 to 12 people alive for deep space flight.
Gotcha.
It is an awesome little space station. With growing sections for food and stuff. Yep, the station seems concerned. It's been 3 weeks with no message from Earth. So they're all basically sitting around, and morale is still high. There's let's see, how many people in the crew? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, 5 people are on the crew of this space station, and you don't know what their mission was. All this stuff is unclear, but you know there's 5 people on the space station. Well, Sully goes, and as she's walking through the station, everybody's talking about how, hey, if what they're doing is every few hours the commander of the space station is telling his crew, reboot the telecommunications, reboot it, scrub it, fix it, reboot it, because they're not hearing from Earth, and that is a bad omen. So, but all they can come up with is that something's wrong with our equipment. So they keep scrubbing it, cleaning it, trying to repair it.
Yeah.
And that's the topic of discussion is, has anybody heard from Earth?
It's the computer reboot and all your problems go away kind of thing, huh?
Trying to be that anyway. And in the meantime, a red alarm goes off and everybody is aware that there is Oh, my bad. No, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. So as they're all discussing, it cuts away to the old man, and here's another unclear area. Okay, the old man he gets woken up out of a dead sleep with a fire alarm going off in the building. He gets up and he goes into the kitchen, and it looks like somebody was cooking food and left the pan on the stove and everything, and the whole stove was on fire. He puts it out real quick, and he's looking at it kind of puzzled, like
what the hell?
Yeah,
I thought I was the only one here.
Well, no, he's like, did I do that? Like, I mean, and he is sick. I mean, it doesn't say if it's dementia or not.
Oh.
He's just terminal. It could be a brain tumor. I have no idea. It hasn't explained any of this to us yet. But anyway, he puts the fire out. And as he puts the fire out, he leans against the counter and he slides down. And as he slides down into the crouching position, he sees a little kid across from him, like huddled up in the corner, like she was scared because she tried to cook something and the fire started.
Yeah,
that's what.
Oh, I'm gonna be in so much trouble.
Yeah, that's what the movie infers to you. Anyway, it's still unclear. They don't tell you that.
This all sounds very vague. Was the whole movie just very vague, or does it eventually all kind of tie in?
Oh, it all syncs together very, very clear.
So it melds together.
Yes, but the situations that I'm explaining, I'm not explaining them completely. I'm leaving it open because you'll see. I don't know. Have you ever, and I'm not, this is not the same thing. I'm just telling you that now. But there was a movie, I See Dead People. What movie was that?
Oh, was that The Sixth Sense?
Yes, The Sixth Sense. You know how movie, you couldn't understand it until the end?
I haven't really watched that movie, so I don't...
Oh, wow. That'll be one we'll have to do on here then. Well, I'm going to shut up. Because that's really good, too. Everybody that's watching or listening to this probably knows what I'm referring to.
I mean, like I was going to say, it's kind of like all over the internet. I mean, I understand, but I See Dead People. Like,
yes, yeah.
It's one of those... It's kind
of
like a pop culture reference now.
Okay. So there was a fire. The old man puts it out, and he discovers a little girl. The girl was left behind. He tries to talk to the little girl. She's a mute. She won't Like, well, that is unclear as well. It doesn't say she's a mute.
But she's just quiet for their interaction.
Yeah, she just won't talk. So anyway, so he immediately goes and he tries to send a message to the spacecrafts. Either the ones that just left, if they just left. I don't know how long. It's unclear how long it's been. But he can't get a hold of anybody. His messages are falling on deaf ears. Nobody is in range to get them. She was left behind. The girl doesn't talk. So a few scenes later, he's making food for her and him. And she's sitting at the table coloring or drawing or something. Or she drew and then is coloring it in or something. Some flowers. And he tries talking to her and she won't talk back. And he goes, "Are you deaf?" And he starts snapping his fingers by her head and she turns right away. And he goes, "Well, obviously it's not that." And then he's sitting there and the flowers she's drawing, he goes, "Oh, that's..." and he gives it the actual scientific name for the flower. And the little girl nods her head and he goes, "Yeah, it's an iris." And she looks up at him like with her eyes lit up and he goes,
"That's my name."
Yeah, and he goes, "Iris. Iris? Is that your name?" And she nods her head.
Gotcha.
So now we have her name, Iris. We don't have the old man's name yet, but it's George Clooney. So he figures out her name by a picture. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. So from the observatory, he keeps trying to reach the evacuation team to inform them the girl was left behind. He tells the girl he needs to contact them so that she can be rescued. The planet they're on was not going to make a suitable home, he tells the girl. He doesn't say Earth, though.
I have a completely and totally random, something just popped into my head.
Okay.
Do they do kind of like some insane mission where he leaves where he's at with the girl to try, with the intent to deliver her to the space station?
You can't walk to a space station, but you're completely right on a long journey.
Well, that's what I mean.
You're
like
hitting the mark.
If there was a ship left behind on this...
There's not a ship, but there is a long journey. I will totally give you that. You're right on the money on that. So, he tells the girl the planet they're on was not going to make us a suitable home. But he literally says that to her, and he doesn't say Earth isn't going to make it. He says this planet's not going to make a suitable home.
Oh.
So maybe it starts to put questions in my head. Is this K2?
Well, yeah, was that exoplanet?
Correct,
that
yeah.
The flashback was...
Yes. Is he on Earth now? Is he on K2? Where is George Clooney and this little girl? So it's not clear. Okay. So nighttime falls. The old man is getting ready to lay down and cover up, and the little girl walks into his room with a blanket and pillow and goes to throw it on the floor. And the old man, no, you got your own room. Let me show you where it's at. And he grabs her blanket and her pillow, and he pulls it back into the room and shows her the blanket. And he goes, "You'll be fine." And then he shuts her door and he walks back in his room and he leaves his door cracked and he lays down. And sure enough, a few moments later, here she comes and she lays back down in the corner. And the old man, either giving in to her or sickly and just too tired to get up and struggle, he's like, forget it.
Yeah.
He lets her stay. She's growing on him is what the hell this is.
Yeah, so these two become kind of a duo of sorts, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the girl sleeps.
Is there going to be some horrible goodbye scene where if I watched it, I would bawl my sensitive little eyes out?
Yeah.
Aww.
So okay. So the next scene, you can. This is another bonding moment between the two. George Clooney, who I'm not giving you his name yet on purpose, but George Clooney, he made them lunch, and they're sitting in the same cafeteria where you look out, you can see the. It looked like he was in the clouds, but it was because the white snow was so white, it looked like the sky.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me go back to where I was at. I am so sorry. Okay, yeah. So he makes her lunch. They're both sitting there eating, and as he's eating, he's used to eating alone. So he's not making eye contact. He's not communicating with her at all. She's not a talker anyway. So he's eating his food, and out of the corner of his eye, he sees a pea roll over to his thing, and he looks up, and the little girl looks down real quick, and he goes back to eating, and then another pea rolls over, and then he locks eyes with her. And then he starts grabbing his peas and he starts putting them on the table in a line. And then the little girl squints her eyes and she starts grabbing the peas and she starts making a line on the table. And then they start flicking them at each other, you know. They have a bonding moment and they have a real good playful moment.
Do they really try and hit home the bonding between
Yes.
these two? Is the bonding between these two very important?
Yes, I would say so. I'm going to go into detail, and it's going to all come around here soon. Okay. So they have a little food fight, and then it cuts back to the space station. You see that another alarm is going off that Earth is still radio silent, and that planet they were checking out on their 2-year journey is capable of being home. So they are. You just find out they are coming from K2. So it's a space station that made it to K2 to start a settlement and to make sure it's habitable and then to come back. So they're on their 20-year mission or whatever. However, they don't even explain that. It's very vague. They don't even explain how long the mission was. But you find out that they are coming from K2. Okay?
Okay.
On the 2-year capable of home. Now after that, because they're walking around talking, and it's subtext that they just left K2 and stuff like that. There's just a few little talking scenes, and then it cuts back to the old man. More transfusions. He's in the medical chair and he's getting his transfusions. The girl is growing on the old man. He seems glad to not be alone. More backflashes occur. Now, at this point, I'm totally thinking that the old man is the younger man in the flashbacks, okay?
Okay. Is that why we don't get his name until the end of your explanation?
A little bit. It all plays in together.
Gotcha.
But this young man and the woman that he met at that cocktail party that they were hitting it off with, they're standing in his home or her home. And he is standing there looking distraught and looking lost as she's standing there with her arms crossed talking to him. And when it finally allows you to hear what's going on, she says, it was negative, so you don't have to worry about it. And she's referring to a pregnancy test.
Yeah.
It's negative, so you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to interfere with your important work. And I'm doing quotation fingers.
Yeah.
Apparently she thought she was pregnant, and this guy was so wrapped up in his work, he thought having this kid might interfere with his work, and because he thinks he's this guy's trying to
contention between the two.
Correct, but none of this is clear because it doesn't say this. It's just a little scene, but the guy is working on saving humanity, finding a planet for everyone to go to. So his work is very important.
Yeah, it all kind of falls down to him.
Correct. And that's the way he feels. So whatever interaction they had, he felt like this could be a detriment to his work. And she said, "Hey, don't worry, it didn't happen." And
sounds to me like he was getting ready to go to Hong Kong and just split.
I don't know about that. But anyway, so during that backflash, they argue a little bit. She basically, and in this moment, I think, not the movie telling you this, but I'm thinking he's reflecting back and going, I squandered my chance at a family.
Yeah.
Because of this girl, he's getting closer to her.
It's the regret.
Yes, that's what I thought was happening at that time.
Look at what I could have had.
And shortly after they argue a little bit, she ends up leaving on decent terms. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You
want this and I don't want this.
Yes, and it seems like they split.
Yeah.
At that point.
Amicably.
Correct. Okay,
None
so
of this. I'm gonna burn your house down.
And at this time, he realizes that they're running out of time. He looks at a screen that shows the atmosphere on the planet is getting worse. And the antenna that he uses to communicate with the space station is not large enough. If they could get to a bigger antenna that is closer, he could reach them sooner than to wait for the deadline. They might not make it long enough
so is that the journey, fixing the antenna so they can get a hold? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Makes sense now, though.
Okay, so they start to plan to move to this weather station to use a larger antenna, and he hopes someone will hear them. It's a long, cold journey. I was questioning if they could even make it because it's a far distance. But the old man, he starts packing hastily and plotting his course. He is sick too. So you see him grabbing like this. It looks like a suitcase kind of, or a briefcase. What's inside it is a transfusion machine.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was in it when he grabbed it, but it was a large case. And
so he could keep up with his treatments then.
Correct. And they're not on foot. He's got like a snowmobile or some kind of a vehicle.
Gotcha.
Which I didn't realize they were going to have, which I thought, oh man, well their journey will be easier now.
Yeah.
You know. And it still hasn't set its Earth or anything. We know it's not K2 now.
Yep.
But we don't know if it's Earth.
Do you ever find out what that planet is that he's on?
Yeah, you do. You do. I'm going to tell you here shortly. The girl and the old man leave the observatory for the weather station. He tells the girl not to remove her oxygen mask. They're both geared up and they got masks on and everything.
Gotcha.
And he says, don't remove your mask as they head out into the cold on a vehicle. Cuts back to the space station. On the space station, the crew are doing R&R and trying to stay sane while waiting for a message from Earth. The crew is in good spirits. On this space station, the crew has kind of like a Star Trek holodeck, but it's not like the holodeck in the sense that you can like run a program and walk into it and shoot this guy and do that, and it's like real world. Yeah. It's not like that, but you could literally have like a home movie, and you could go walk into that home movie and sit down like you were sitting next to a loved one.
Gotcha.
So that's how they stayed sane on this long journey. So the crew could go run their program and go sit down, and it's like they're sitting with their family.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the character, let me get her name here so I get it correct. Okay, the little girl that's with the old man is Cowlin Springle. And the woman who's sitting with her family is Tiffany Boone, who plays Maya. The other character who has a scene very similar to that, where he's eating a bowl of cereal, and he walks from one end of the space station into the holographic part, and he sits down at like his breakfast table, and he's eating cereal with his kids.
Yeah.
And his kids aren't there. It's just like a recording.
Yeah, just to keep them
close to his heart and on his mind, to make it feel like he was home, just a little slice of home. So anyway, they're
enough to keep them comfortable so they can do what they need to do to get it done.
Correct. So they're doing their R&R and trying to stay sane. The crew is in good spirits. The crew is informed that the space station is off course, and a red alert starts. They have to course correct. Crisis almost averted. So they have to try to course correct, and when they do, they're going through a small
debris field.
Yeah, like a micrometeorite thing, and it hits their communications, which knocks it out, and it hits their telemetry, or it took out two things that they had to repair. That sucks. It's not in my notes. But one of them was communications. I do believe the other was telemetry. But at this point, the crew is informed they're off course in a red alert. They have to chart their way through an unmapped zone to be able to reach Earth.
Oh.
So the way they came isn't the way they have to come back. And it's dangerous to go through unmapped zones. But they have to reach Earth. And after all that, and they start doing their damage reports, and they're clicking on their consoles, and they're figuring out what's going on, it cuts back to the old man down on the surface of whatever planet he's on. Meanwhile, the old man and girl race across the frozen tundra, only stopping to make shelter at night. They come to a plane crash. Is this Earth? That was a question I literally typed up, because there's a plane crash, and it looks like wolves, or like surrounding the plane, and I'm thinking, well, wolves ain't going to be on K2. And we know it's not K2, but even if it was another moon, like, wolves wouldn't be there unless they brought them. Anyway, so he approaches this plane, and he tells the girl to stay back. Because as he walks around the cockpit, there's like a dude missing a head. And he doesn't want her to see it and scare her, so he says, stay back. And he goes into the cabin, and as he's looking around, a guy grabs his leg. Like, it's like this plane went down recently. Yeah. This guy is a survivor.
Hanging out. That's why the wolves are circling.
Yep. They were going to eat him, I think. And he fires his gun. He does have a gun. It looks like a 3D printed gun, kind of. Yeah. It's kind of a neat-looking rifle. But anyway, he goes into the plane after he scares the wolves off, and this guy grabs his leg. And the guy, you can't hear what he's saying. The guy can't talk. He's got blisters on his face. He's not right. He's dying. Yeah. And he whispers in the guy's ear, and the little girl sees the dead body, and she goes to him, and he says, no, go. And he forces her out as he shoots the guy. He puts him out of his misery. I think the guy was asking for a quick death. I think that's what he was doing.
Have mercy on me, put me down.
I think so, but that is unclear. It's not, you never know what he says. Yeah. I did not have subtitles on. I guess maybe they would have picked the whisper up, possibly, but I don't think so.
Sounds like they leave a lot for you to just kind of assume, like...
Okay, so he puts down the survivor to put him out of his misery. So the girl and the old man, they leave and travel and then set up camp for the night. And the little girl finally starts talking to him. And he says, I know your name is Iris. Do you have any questions for me? And I think she asks him, what's your name? And he says, Augustine. Another backflash takes place to younger self. In this backflash, he's standing there talking to that woman again. It looks like it's been 5-7 years. Okay? Like, time is passed.
Yeah, the one he was arguing with?
Correct. About the one who said, it's negative, don't worry, blah, blah, and they amicably split. Well, she's standing there, and she's telling him, hey, you're doing great work. You're almost at the end here. This is awesome. Congratulations and stuff. And they're congratulating back and forth, and he congratulates her on her daughter and hands her a box that's got a moon rock in it. And he says, hey, give this to her, blah, blah, blah.
Is Iris her daughter?
Huh?
Is Iris her daughter?
Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that, please. For real, put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. We will.
Okay.
So he gives her a moon rock for her daughter. And, he says, wish her luck for me or whatever. And she goes, you could meet her. You could tell her yourself. And he goes, nah, I'm kind of busy, and all this stuff. And he hands her the box and stuff. Yeah. And they drive away, and he's standing there looking. And what I thought is it was his longing for a family. And this might have been his last chance, even if it wasn't his kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I took it as. His job made him lose his family, or lose a chance at a family. And that cutscene is...
And he didn't know he wanted it until it was too late.
Yes. Okay. So while he's trying to get her to chat with him, she's drawing again and stuff. So they continue on again, and they come across a big container. Okay, they're driving on the snowmobile, and they go for a long ways, and then night's about to fall, and they see this container on the horizon. So they head for this container, and they open it up, and sure enough, it's very bare, very minimalistic, but it'll keep them warm, and it'll keep them out of the elements. So they go inside to sleep. They fall asleep.
Do they wake up to somebody? What are you doing in my house?
No, but they do wake up to some danger. The old man wakes up, and the container or building is sinking in water. They were on ice.
Oh.
They were on top of water. They have to escape. Ice breaks all around them as he tries to save her and his medical stuff. So this guy is like in a container. As the back half of it goes into the water, they start to fill up, and he's in water. And this is like North Dakota,
yeah,
with the wind
like
and
if
the
you
snow.
would go through
He's
ice
going to go into
fishing.
hypothermia. Yeah, if he falls in the, if he like, he's in a very life or death situation.
Yes.
And not only that, he's sickly, and not only that, he needs this medical equipment to keep him, you know, alive for as long as it can.
And he's responsible for another life.
For this little girl now.
Yeah.
Correct. So as this thing is starting to go in, he gets her out the door as he falls backwards into the water, and he's trying to grab his big medical case and all this stuff, and she gets out and starts running across the ice as it's breaking up behind her, and he gets out of the water just to get on top of the snowmobile with everything and just crank it up, but the snowmobile won't move. The back end is in the water a little bit, and it's just skidding around, and it won't grip and like take off.
Yeah.
And eventually, kersploosh, the whole thing goes into the water, and it starts pulling him, his equipment down to the bottom, or wherever.
This sounds like one of those movies that would give me
Yes.
the anxiety.
It is a very intense moment. So he's struggling in the water, and he starts to swim down. He's running out of breath, and he goes to reach for the backpack, and he goes to reach for the snowmobile, and he realizes it's a lost cause. He lets go of both, and he swims to the surface. Right as he breaks the surface, he gasps for air, and he's clearly defeated. He what was going to keep him alive to maybe make it to the weather station is now at the bottom of the water. And he is wet. He's about to go into hypothermia. He pops up. He gets out. And the little girl is fine. And it cuts. And it doesn't show how he survives this moment.
Unclear.
Unclear. Exactly. So to save his medical stuff, and he didn't save his medical stuff. They lost their vehicle. And it cuts to the next morning. Apparently, whatever the girl was carrying was enough to keep him alive so that he didn't freeze to death. So the old man has to abandon his vehicle and the medical stuff and try not to freeze.
Somehow little one pulls it through and has enough
and helps. Or whatever stuff he had left did save his life. Now they continue on foot. They share their last bit of food. They have a small conversation and eat their food while they're sitting in like a little cave or a nook, discussing better days and better food. Like she mentions pizza and he's talking about cheeseburgers and fries. And
talking about food while you're starving to death.
Correct. As they're sharing their last like piece of granola or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they journey once more out into the white cold, and now they're being stalked by wolves. They carry on.
Yeah,
they're on
That's
foot.
An omen right there, isn't it?
Yep. Well, the wolves get closer. They go They walk a much further distance, you know. But the wolves get closer, and he uses his gun to protect the girl. So, and it's a storm, like there's a snowstorm going on.
Yeah.
So you can't see. You see a wolf like run from the right to the left side, and you barely see them. They're just a streak, and then they're gone into the white.
Just enough to give you the idea that they're there and they're a problem.
Think of fog and a snowstorm taking place at the same time. Okay?
I've driven through stuff like that on my way to work in the mornings.
Okay, well, he shoots the wolf to get them to go. But as he shoots, he slips on the ice, and when he stands up, he can't find the little girl. She's gone.
Oh, no.
So he starts calling out to her with no response. He walks for a while, and then he collapses. The sun comes out as he flips on his back, and he looks up at the sun, and you can see long icicles hanging from his beard. Like, I mean, it is freezing cold. And he is basically yelling for her, and he can't see her. He's about to give up and die right there.
Yeah.
Because he thinks maybe the wolves got her. I don't know, but he's very demoralized in this moment.
Very downtrodden.
Yeah, and the sun comes out. And as the sun comes up and he looks up at the sun, he sees an image of the girl that he was having backflashes about.
Yeah.
Okay? And it morphs into the little girl's face. Okay? And she helps him up.
So was that gonna be like he's gonna dream of her as he goes, but then the little girl is there and his hallucination...
He collapses and the sun comes out and he sees his younger wife. It's unclear if it was his wife, his girlfriend, or what.
Partner of sorts.
Yep. The little girl returns. He is overjoyed he didn't lose her. Pardon me. I'm very sorry. He is overjoyed that he didn't lose her. And in the next scene, they make it to the weather station. Barely. They're in rough shape when they get there. Cut back to the space station. After reboot, the radio on the space station gets a message from the old man and little girl. The old man starts to inform them of the situation, but it is garbled. So he starts, 3 weeks ago, the event, like they're intentionally not letting you hear him explain what is going on.
Yeah, typical trope, though.
Correct. And the micrometeorite, thing that they went through damaged their stuff, so they have to repair it. Okay. The old man starts to inform the situation, but it is garbled. Most of the info was missed. An alarm goes off on the station. More micrometeorites hit the space station.
That's not looking good for them on the space station, is it?
No, the garbled transmission fades and disappears completely. They leave the micrometeorite fields and they start to access the damage information from across the station. Comms and radar is down, which would basically be telecommunications, I think. But anyway, comms and radar are down. The comms must be fixed, but it's going to take a spacewalk. The commander, Sully, and Tiffany, I think her name was, they all go out for the spacewalk. Tiffany has never done a spacewalk before. She's excited to do it. The captain is a little apprehensive, as the one of the spacewalkers have yet to do it.
Well, and isn't one of them pregnant?
Yes, the pregnant one goes out too.
Does
that
she
is
go
why
into labor when...
Nope, that is wrong. But let me add something. The movie did tell you, when I didn't add this, that the commander of the station is the daddy. So they're a thing.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so the commander knows that his baby mama and baby are going out there, and he's not going to let them go out alone. And he's apprehensive that the only person that's not experienced is her backup out there.
Yeah.
So he's going to. Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? He
Yeah.
won't let her go without him.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So they all go. So they all get ready to go out on their spacewalk. They're gearing up, and Tiffany. Let me make sure that's her name.
Or is it Mia?
Yeah, I don't know. I want to make sure I get this correct. Yeah, it's Maya. Maya starts getting violently sick. Not like like somebody that would go out on Lake Michigan in the waves.
Seasick.
Yeah, it's like that.
Motion sickness.
Yep. So she starts throwing up, either nerves or whatever. She's throwing up in a bag, and it's kind of a funny moment. Let's see here. Okay, they go out for a spacewalk and do the repairs. Slowly, they click and clank onto the, they clip themselves into the station as they pull themselves along in 0G, and
So
they start to do their
moments.
right, and they start doing their repairs. They all get into position. The radar is almost fixed. They start a song over the comms for morale. Sweet Caroline. Sweet Caroline. You know?
Yeah.
The commander tells them to reboot the radar. As they finish with the radar and snap everything back into position, Maya is at the tip, and they get another alert. Another meteorite, micrometeorite field is coming into play. Another alert, more meteorites, mass damage again as they try and survive the impacts, but everyone made it. And radar come back up. It was a very intense moment. Everybody makes it though, right? Like, things are flying around and everything, and everybody makes it. Everything seems good until they're almost back to the airlock. And Maya, she starts to see droplets of blood floating in her helmet. 0G blood. And she's like, guys, I think we have a problem. Like, she can't feel she's wounded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But something's wrong. Blood's floating up in her helmet. Maya was hit. You see little droplets of blood floating in her helmet, and as the commander flips her over, he sees that a micrometeorite has penetrated her backpack and has penetrated her back.
Oh.
They rush to get inside. Inside, they rush to render aid. As they have to decompress the chamber and refill it with air. So there's about 3 minutes they have to wait. So they're trying to hold the wound as her helmet is filling up with blood, and they're, it's another very intense moment as they're, the guy with the medical pack is on the other side of the door slamming on it like, come on, because he has to wait. If he opens it, everybody dies. So he has to wait for this time. Anyway, the time goes, they take the helmet off, and immediately the room starts filling up with blood. Like more blood escapes the helmet, and you can see like, that's a lot of blood. Maya's dying.
Yeah, she's not going to make it.
Maya's dying. The blood goes everywhere in the 0G. They rush to close the wound. Maya is dying. She passed away from her wounds. Sully, the pregnant woman, goes back to attempt to contact the weather observatory and talk to the old man. She's kind of stewing and is like very upset that her friend is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and being pregnant on top of that with all the emotions and with just how exhausted your body is, like that definitely adds to taking a hit like that, if you will. Even though she wasn't physically touched, losing a friend was a big hit to her.
Absolutely. And I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, our live podcast will be probably 2 hours because we're at an hour and 44 minutes and I'm getting close to being done. So I do think it's going to be an hour apiece. I think that works out pretty good. But okay, so she tries to get in contact with the weather station to talk to the old man. It cuts to the old man. Without transfusion and meds, he is coughing and seems very weak. The space station morale is bad after Maya's death as well. So it cuts to him very very quickly, and it shows him wandering around this new station getting more sick because he doesn't have the pills, he doesn't have the transfusion, there's no medical stuff there for him. And then it cuts back to the space station, and the crew their morale is bad. But they get close, and it shows, let me get his name right. Let me get back to it here. Get me back to that, please. But yeah, so one of the guys is sitting at the observatory deck, and Kyle Chandler, his name was Mitchell. Mitchell gets the first view of Earth. They've almost made it to Earth. They're close enough for their equipment to see Earth pretty good, and it is all messed up.
Probably why they haven't heard anything from Earth, huh?
Yep. And now it cuts back to the old man, and the transition makes its way to the old man. The old man explains the meaning that we, meaning humans, have not taken good care of Earth since the space station has been gone.
Message.
All livable areas are underground. The crew of the station has big plans to formulate. So basically what happens is he explains to them Earth is dying.
Yeah, everything's moved underground.
Anybody that is staying behind has moved underground, and anybody else has left planet. And as a matter of fact, even the people underground may not make it. So, like, basically what they told them is your long trip, that long trip you just made was fruitless. There's nobody to pick up. People are heading back there, as a matter of fact, probably to K2, the ones that left.
Yeah.
That's what they don't, it's unclear. They don't really say where they're going, but I imagine K2. Okay?
Okay.
But anyway, so now they have big plans to formulate. Do we turn this thing around? Do we try to make it to Earth and live underground? What are they going to do?
Taking stock of the situation.
Correct. So they have big plans to formulate. They figure that they have to leave Earth. Nothing for them there, and they have to turn around and head back to the K2 planet. Going to be tough to make it, though. One of the crew, Mitchell, wants to stay on Earth. And
is that the one that was eating breakfast with his hologram family?
Mitchell, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because he said, I have promises to keep. If they're alive down there, even underground, I have to go.
Yeah.
I have a
Were
promise
they?
to keep. Unclear. It's one of those. There is a lot of plot threads that aren't explained, and I'll tell you that is why I don't like the ending. And we're almost there. I'm getting there. I'm telling you, and I'm hopefully that this actually plays out to where it's a surprise to you guys at the end. But let's see. So Mitchell, he wants to go back to Earth.
And there's not a whole lot to be going back to.
Yep. And at this point, the lady says, "What is your name?" to the old man. And he says, "Augustine Lockhart." So he is the young man. He's the guy who found K2. He's the guy who planned the mission. So he was trying to get in contact with the space station to turn around. Hey, there's nothing for you here. Mm-hmm. Augustine confirms the Earth is screwed. They find during this time, they cut back to the space station and they're walking around. And since they're close to Earth, they're receiving all the transmissions that were left for them from their loved ones that they hadn't received.
Oh,
so they start.
So it's all flooding in.
Correct. Which makes Mitchell want to stay even more.
Yeah.
He's like, I just heard from my wife. My 2 sons are sick. I need to get down there.
Yeah, but who knows when that message was sent, though.
Correct. And Mitchell is all broken up about it anyway because he said, I was the one that was at risk. How come I left on the riskiest mission of all and I come back and my family was the ones that were in trouble?
Yeah.
It really is starting to bother him.
So in his way, he's trying to make it right somehow by staying.
Yep. And they find transmissions from loved ones saying goodbye. 2 crew members decide they want to take the pod down to Earth as the station turns around. So one of the people that was close friends with Mitchell, Sanchez, Sanchez was his name.
He was like, I'm not going to let you go down there
Well,
alone, man.
what he tells him is, hey, it takes 2 to pilot the shuttle. And the guy goes, oh, I'll make it work. And the dude goes, no, I'll go with you.
I'm not going to leave you hanging, bro.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the crew members decide that they want to take the pod down to Earth as the station turns around. The 2 crew members pack and say goodbyes. They climb into the pod for re-entry to Earth. As they descend, the space station tells Augustine they will lose communication. They tell him about Mia and the other 2 coming to Earth. They thank him for finding a wonderful world and wished he could have seen it. The planet K2 he found. The Prego woman thanks Augustine and starts explaining that he once worked with her mother. And Augustine gave her a moon rock as a kid.
Yeah.
And made her want to be an astronaut. Augustine and his flashbacks are now shown that the Prego woman was his daughter, Iris Augustine. The little girl he found in the cafeteria was a hallucination of what he remembered his daughter to look like.
Really?
Yep. And that's the end.
So he missed out on his daughters growing up, so he just hallucinated a little individual to get him through to...
Yep.
And they don't...
So he got to talk to his daughter anyway before he died. They got to have that. But while she's talking to him, after she's done explaining all that, Augustine, he never comes back. He died. He died while he was sitting there talking to his daughter. A tear runs down his face.
Aww.
And he's, that it's unclear, but I think he dies. And that little girl, he was never going to that radio station to send help for the little girl to get her off the station. He was sending help to his daughter, telling her, don't come here, turn around. You're going the wrong way. There's nothing here for you. So he was hallucinating, and I don't know if it was his illness, like he started cooking, and he went to bed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the little girl was never there. Was never there. And it doesn't explain what happened to Mitchell and him if he ever found his family. It never shows the old man actually die sitting by the radio. And it never shows the commander and Sully going back to K2. They just kind of sit there and they type on their machines and then the credits roll. That's the end of the movie. That's why I didn't like the ending. I thought that the twist was fantastic. The little girl wasn't even real. She was just a reason to keep him going so he could contact her. That was awesome, and that's how he knew her name. You don't talk much, do you? Oh, that flower there is so-and-so. Iris? Yeah, that, you know. But anyway, it was a fantastic movie, but the
Wow.
ending really sucked. Did I suck you in? Was that a twist you didn't see coming?
That is, yeah, no, I did not see that happening that way at all. That's very upsetting. I can understand the frustration, though, of, like, you have this build-up, and you're kind of like, what the hell? Like, where is this going? And then you have the build-up and the build-up, and then done. Like,
Well, the misdirect is the woman screaming, "Where's my kid?" And then, oh no, your girl got on the other thing. And
to
then
plant the idea
Yes.
that Iris was real.
correct.
Gotcha.
That was the hook, to get you, wondering. Anyway, it was just awfully fantastic. I would give this movie a 7.8 or an 8 out of 10. I would have given it a 9 if it would have.
Empty plot holes.
A lot is unclear. It is a lot like The Sixth Sense. I think if I go back and watch it again, I will pick up even more stuff. So I would give it a 7.8 or an 8 out of 10. That was The Midnight Sky. And
the question for me to you would be, is that a movie that you would want to watch again? Or was
No.
the ending enough to just
the
be
ending,
like...
the ending was enough of a put off for me.
See, I've read books like that where the whole book was phenomenal, and then you get to the end and you're like, what the hell happened? Like, you're gonna end it, and I've literally thrown books across the room before.
Some writers, I don't want to open a whole can of worms, but I love Star Wars, and I did not like what they did with Star Wars. Some writers can shit the bed.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be just books or
Nope.
just movies.
Right. All right. Well, this has been the very first episode of Piper's Picks. I'm William.
I'm Sierra, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming along on this journey with us, and it was very fun, and I look forward to doing it again.
Next time on camera. Have a great day, guys. I hope you all are doing well.
Bye!